Boom. We're gonna go over a few FAQs. Before I do that, we are sponsored. Thank you, Capcom. Thank you, Monster Hunter team. So Monster Hunter Wilds just released as of this last night, today. I kind of put some of the major key points of the game into this FAQ that I built. In general, what should be said about the game, but a lot of things that I keep seeing people ask about. So I just kind of built the FAQ based off of that. But we're going to go over, there are 14 weapons that we're going to go over after this. What is Monster Hunter if someone's never played it? It's kind of like a boss fight game. It has action RPG combat a little bit. Some people keep trying to say it's like a Souls-like. I don't think so. I think it's very different. You fight a monster, you kill the monster, you get drops from the monster, and then you make new armor and weapons out of the monster and you wear it. And then you go fight the next harder monster. Boom. That's what you do. So the progression in this game, the really important part, is that it is all based off of your armor and weapons and the stats within. It has nothing to do with any sort of leveling system or anything like that. There's none of that. So it's purely based off of the stuff you make and what you're putting on yourself. That's the progression in the game. Do you want monsters in it? You do. For choosing weapon, we'll talk about it after. But once you do choose one, to learn to use the weapon, honestly, they have a really good training area. Last night, I went back in the training area for a little bit and just kind of refreshed myself on all the weapons. And honestly, their training area is really good. For story mode, I was checking some things out. You really don't have to play it solo. When you sit there in a cutscene, you are alone. But then the moment the hunt starts, you can just pop an SOS flare and have people jump in. So when I was playing yesterday, we were in a multiplayer lobby like the whole time. I just had a private session going, so I didn't have, people spamming notes and stuff at me while I was running around. Really, really simple, honestly. And then I have some noob tips. Number one, this is the most important thing in my opinion. It doesn't matter what weapon you use, just pick one and use it. Pick one based off of the vibes. Do one that is fun for you to play. It literally doesn't matter. I see people agonizing about it. I see weapons guides on YouTube getting hundreds and thousands of views. It literally doesn't matter. Just go into the training area, try all of them once, and then use one. They're all comparable. Some people will say, oh, this weapon does more damage than that. Overall, the DPS is good enough on all of them. You saw that at the end of World, once people had min-maxed the hell out of the game, they realized that heavy bowguns with a certain build, they would go in and they'd throw everything together. This is the most DPS I could possibly get, so I get the fastest time. That only matters if you're speedrunning and you're trying to get insane times. But also, when people are trying to get crazy times, they do it by weapon. So yes, you can say the fastest ever time on this monster is this and using this weapon. But most of the time people go, here's my longsword time, here's my greatsword time, here's my sword and shield time, right? And they kind of speedrun based off of weapon. So don't worry about it, just do whatever. But also if you're like a newbie, you're not doing that. So just go and play it, and they're all viable. There's not a single weapon that isn't viable. I find that in Wilds, it's really easy to forget to go and refill your items. Now, you always kind of start out with your basic buffs, but it's good to throw down your little barbecue set. It's very, very, very important to do that. I find it's so easy in Wilds in particular to forget compared to other games. Part of it being that the box is specifically in your tent and you forget to go in the tent. Little things like this. Just make sure you get in the habit. And then, yeah, it's an armor set. You can call things a build if you want for a total loadout, but realistically, you're putting together an armor set. If you're a noob and you haven't played and you're like, how do I play better? When you fight a new monster, try hitting every single part of them. Every single part of them, okay? This is because certain weapons will do more damage in certain spots. The head is often very weak on some monsters, so you hit it with a slashing weapon, you do more damage, yay. Some of them, no. Some of them, their head is actually very armored up and you hit like the belly area or you hit the tail or you hit the back leg or the front leg and it's way more effective. And you just have to look at your damage numbers. This also changes based off of weapon because weapons have damage types. Some of them are blunt, some of them are slashing, etc. Learn it for the weapon you're using. But if you're using a different weapon, try different combinations of things, right? Try attacking different spots. So typically if you're in a party, most weapons that are blunt, people are going to go for the head, right? So you have your hammer guy on the head. If you're playing this game and you keep losing, you keep dying, obviously you need to learn fights. But if you feel like you get hit once and it takes out more than half your health and you just keep chugging potions, you're running out of potions and you die so much and you're like, I'm not even that bad at it, I just occasionally get hit. Check for gear upgrades. It's very easy to just be okay one fight and then the next thing you fight, it starts marking you. It might be that your defense is low, but it might be resistance. It might be that your defense is totally fine for this monster, but it has a water element and you have no water resistance. In fact, you might have negative water resistance, so it just does so much damage to you. So change your gear. I find a lot of people just make the set that they like and they see, you know, -4 and they're like, that's not much. And then they keep dying to a thing. Remember to check it because it is significant. Most important, in my opinion, to get used to. When you try to kill a monster, I think, even though you do more damage on certain parts, you should try to hit everything so you get a break on every part. And if it's something you can cut or break a second time, you should do it. If you can break the face, you can keep hitting it and doing enough damage to it that eventually a part breaks off, do it. If you can cut the tail, cut the tail. Do all of this as best you can before you kill it, because every time you do this, you get extra drops, and they're specific to that part for a lot of monsters. Let's say you need a Rathalos tail. Well, you can't get one unless you cut the tail off of the monster during the fight. You have to do that. Anyway, those are my most important noob tips. Everything else you're gonna pick up as you go. Silly question, but to what degree do these games have endgame where you can keep progressing? The endgame is really long, usually. They keep adding quests. They keep patching in new content all the time. I would say for the first release of these games, a lot of the time, there's a point where you're like, okay, I've kind of done everything unless you're 100%ing. When they do their expansions, they do their event quests, things like that, there's so much content. Not sure if this has been asked, but can I play this solo? I get anxiety when I play with other folks because I'm pretty old. I played everything solo and I want to do all of my progression solo if I can. It's fine. Let's go over no weapons. Ooh. This is to help you figure out what weapon you want to use. Let me put it here. There's not much that's new, to be honest, for Greatsword. It just feels really nice to use. As you can see, it's very long. The way you use the weapon, the way your character extends their arm out when they use the weapon, it has such good reach. The damage per hit is crazy. It's a slow-ass weapon, but the damage on each hit is crazy. It is the most. So what it means is you sit there, you charge up, you charge up, you charge up, you wait for the monster to come to you or be in front of you in the right way, boom, you hit him for a huge amount of damage. It's very satisfying to play. You can guard with this sword. Is it hard to dodge? No, the moment you're out of an animation, you can just roll the same way you can with anything else. But the animations, because it is slow, there is a bit of time after your hit where you do, yeah, there is like a 0.2 seconds where you can't roll yet, but it's not that bad. You can roll out of most moves pretty easily. I feel like Greatsword is the perfect sword to go in naked with and do like no hit runs. Very let me solo her. I think it's actually hard for beginners to use, but also good for them. So I do recommend it for beginners. It's really easy to mess up and to whiff attacks. You know, you sit there and you charge and you let your attack go and you mistime it because you just don't know how any of these monsters work yet. But then this weapon forces you to learn their patterns really well, to understand how they move. So you learn the game very quickly. So I think it's actually really, really good to learn on if you're willing to be patient. If you're impatient, maybe swap to this after when you really want to like get good. But this is a get good weapon. And then here's I added a meme for each one. Greatsword users be like... All right, next, longsword. This is the weeb weapon. The cons of it are the combos are a little simple. You're gonna hit your friends in multiplayer, knock them on the ground constantly, and everyone's gonna get mad at you, and they're gonna laugh at you for using the weeb weapon. But it's very easy to learn. It has good reach, so you can fight anything and be able to cut all the parts. It has really, really fun to do counters, and you don't have to do anything special. In the middle of a lot of combos, you can just start countering. And it looks cool, but the animations are really good, genuinely. It's a ramp-up weapon, so when you attack, a gauge fills, and then you do one special attack that then upgrades your gauge to the next phase. Then you attack again, you fill that gauge again, and then you do your special attack at the end, and boom, it updates it again, and that's your spirit gauge is what it's called. You keep the gauge all the way up, and you have a different move set when your gauge is in the third phase. So you ramp up the weapon and then keep it there. So you get to play really aggressive. You don't want to play too safe or scared. This one forces you to learn to be able to play aggressively, roll through a lot of things because you can't afford to get hit and then, you know, oh, I missed my parry. So I missed my counter and now my gauge is all the way at the bottom. I have to start again. You know, it makes that frustrating for you. So you get used to playing aggressively. So I like it. When you're doing the spirit combo, you can move around now. Before you would do your spirit combo, which is the, you know, the payoff move that upgrades your gauge, and you would just be stuck in one spot. Now you can actually move during it a bit more, which thank God. Here's the meme for, I really like this James one. I missed my parry. Wait for me to come back from the camp, please. All right, sword and shield. I think sword and shield is like a perfect weapon. It's incredible. It's great. I love it. Not enough people main it because I think they think it looks basic, so they're like, oh, sword and shield, whatever. No, it's actually really great. The movement is wonderful. As your combo, you do a hit and move, a hit and move, and hit and move if you want. Almost every single move you can sidestep or move around. A lot of the moves include movement. So there's like this one move where you do a slide and then a slash. It's really nice. You get to move around the monster and dance around them constantly. Your shield you can also attack with. You can block with it, but you can attack. Wonderful for solo play. When you have your weapon out, you can just use items. You don't have to put your weapon away like ever. It can just do everything and I like it. The only con I could think of is that the reach isn't very long, but honestly, it's not that short, so who cares? And then I have my favorite Sunbreak meme. This was after in Sunbreak when you could keep stacking oils with the oils system, and you would pour like all the oils on your sword and you get it ready before you go fight. Anyway, next, dual blades. I would argue it's also kind of like an anime pro tag weapon a little bit. It's another ramp up thing like longsword. I again recommend this for beginners. It just looks really cool when you play it. The focus mode attacks are very dynamic. You're like jumping around. Yeah, it's like really Attack on Titan. The speed is just fun. It's just fun. It does not have a guard though. You have to learn to dodge everything. And it eats stamina, which is okay, but you're just chugging energy drinks all the time. You also have to say you're going demon mode and VC in front of your friends, and they might make fun of you for that. Like, guys, hold on, I'm going demon mode, you know? And yeah, it just feels like this. Also, oh my god, this is one of the worst for hitting people in multiplayer. Don't stand near people and hit them, because you will stagger them and they will get hit by the monster and die because of it. Okay, hammer, one of my most favorites. This is me approved. You KO, you hit the head and you knock them out. You hit the head and you knock them out. And you hit the head and you knock them out. That's it. The mobility on this weapon is pretty good. You don't even have to sheath it. You can just take the hammer out, run around, get up to the monster, gap close to them, beat them up, hit them in the head, knock them over. There you go. In multiplayer, it's always great to have some sort of blunt weapon, someone doing KOs. So I find having a dedicated hammer or hunting horn player is nice to just get those KOs constantly. The only issues with it are you kind of get relegated to head hitting duty. You can hit everything on the monster and kill it, but it's not a slashing slash cutting. So if you want to cut the tail, etc., you're gonna have to find another way to do slashing damage to it. But yeah, that does kind of hamstring you there, but it's very possible. It just means you have to think about it, when normally with other weapons you might not have to think about it. Hammer users are great sword users. I use both for the record and I'm okay with it, but I do like pulling out my hammer and not having to sheath. It's honestly the best. Hunting Horn. I noticed a lot more Hunting Horn mains since World. Again, KO damage. Really interesting is they added echo bubbles. So you would play Horn normally in older games and you would just give people buffs, yourself included. Now they added echo bubbles, which is you set a buff down on the ground. So while you're in that spot, that is where the buff is occurring, which is a new interesting system. And they're pretty big, they're pretty large. I was watching a streamer play this. The animations are so cool. I think they really went hard on trying to upgrade Hunting Horn to be more fun. I don't think it has the greatest mobility. Some of the animations make it look like it's mobile, but realistically, I don't think the mobility mid-combat is that great. So if you want mobility, you might want to go hammer as well, but Hunting Horn is fun. A lot of people feel less effective when they play Hunting Horn, so they only play multiplayer. I don't think that matters at all. I think it's still really good solo. A lot of people will play it and they'll be aware of how helpful they are in multiplayer and they'll be like, I just don't like playing it solo. I think in this game, that's not as much of an issue. Here's your meme. Me when I would play dual blades. Okay, Lance. It was really long, so I had to change the text color. You can play this weapon really safe. It has a big ass shield and it can guard practically everything. I say practically because not literally, but almost any move from any monster can just be guarded with the shield. And you can play it very safe because you can hold up the shield and poke, and then keep the shield up and poke and keep the shield up. It's just really highly defensive. And this iteration of it, there's so many counters that they added to Lance, so it could be really fun. There's a lot that they did to make this just like ultimate tank. And I didn't even dislike old Lance. I just really like this iteration of it. It has no mobility, but again, I wrote, who cares if you can guard? I do think it can be annoying to play multiplayer sometimes, depending on the monster, because some of them will spin in weird ways to face a different person, and then you have to like reposition with the Lance. It can be a little annoying. Here's your meme for Lance. Yeah, it's a spicy shield. When I tell you you can block almost anything, I mean it, okay? You just build for better and better shield, and then you can guard almost everything except for maybe some Novas. And then its counterpart, Gunlance, aka aka the fun lance. Blow things up. They made it so fun in this game. It also guards really well. Normal attacks are poking as if it's a normal lance, and then some attacks are using shells, meaning you fire the gun part of it. It's not long range, you're just firing from the tip of it, so you should still be normal fighting range. The shells ignore damage reduction on certain monster parts and it pierces. So basically what this means is if you go to the head and you're attacking the head with a greatsword and you're doing double damage, and then you go and you attack at the leg and you do like half damage, that doesn't matter for shell moves on Gunlance. It does the most damage it can do everywhere. The only issue is using those shell moves, it knocks down sharpness a lot, so you just have to sharpen all the time. Fine, doesn't matter. You just have this infinite whetstone, whatever. Be careful learning this one. The side steps can be annoying, but once you do get used to them, they're really good. We don't know what this means for how people build themselves until we see the later armor sets, but I can imagine it getting really fucking crazy. Switch axe, it was really long, so we had to go off the off the thing. I use switch axe the most, or have been for years. You go through 2 modes, so you take it out of the sheath, it's an axe. You can press R, boom, it morphs into a sword. So you have 2 sets of moves based off of what form you're in. You're doing a combo with one, and then you hit R in the middle of it, and you do a move that does a hit and it morphs at the same time. So now you're suddenly in the other set of combos, so you can stance switch very quickly, which is cool. It's fun. And they added offsets and counters, so when you're in axe mode, they have an offset move. When you're in sword mode, they have a proper counter, and they're really fun to use. I'm still getting used to the timing on the axe mode offset a little bit, but the axe mode offset is you press the button, you sit there for like a second, and then you do a move. And if that move that you do connects with the move the monster's doing, boom, it's like a counter. With the counter for the sword mode, it's instant. You do it like a parry, so when they try to hit you, the moment it would connect with you, you hit the button and you enter a little stance, hunker down, and then you do a move out of it should they hit you in the middle of it. The timing on the 2 is slightly different, but it's really fun. And yeah, you just play this so aggressively. It's just a really aggressive weapon. You're just trying to constantly get into amps mode so you can keep your meter up. You can keep doing a fuck ton of damage. I find beginners struggle with it. They're trying to learn the fights. They're trying to learn how to play Monster Hunter, and now they also have to learn 2 movesets. It's a lot. I would say to pick another weapon first and then try this. So there are a lot of moves now that you can do, or finishers that you can do out of certain things that let you swap modes. So going back to axe mode after you do kind of a huge sword finisher, normally you just kind of sit there, let it die down, and then start anew, but now you can just kind of flow between it a bit more. World players know. This is if you know, you know. Charge Blade. I kind of want to play Charge Blade again. Similar to Switch Axe, 2 modes. You start with the Sword and Shield mode, and then you swap to Axe mode for big damage payoff. You're basically just fighting in Sword mode. You keep doing a thing to kind of charge these files, and then you pull out the Axe and you spend them. There are obviously more nuances to it. There's a lot of learning curve. It can be really difficult to learn the weapon because of how you need to time these things and when you should do these things, when you should choose to charge files versus when you should do this and that. That being said, when you do learn it, I find it very fun. I do think my second negative bullet point here is something I keep seeing when people try to learn it. They get so caught up in learning the mechanics, and then they're like, look, I'm perfectly using the charge blade. But the choices that they make of what they do when ends up making their DPS fall off a lot. Even if you're playing Charge Blade and you're having fun, your DPS might suck. You might feel like you're playing it right, but your DPS might be ass because you're not actually maximizing how you use it. So that's why the learning curve is tough. A lot of people will use it and they'll feel like they're getting hits out and they're not dying, therefore it's good. But to use it effectively, you have to spend some time being very demure and mindful. Very tough to learn. I don't think it's even that tough to learn. It's tough to learn to use it right. Does that make sense? And then here's my meme of choice for the Charge Blade. I have seen everything. I saw so many memes about people being like, I'm going to use the superior weapon, and then they just get their ass kicked while using Charge Blade. But I'll probably have Switch Axe and Charge Blade as my mains, to be honest, after feeling a lot of the weapons out. Insect Glaive. I played a lot of it in World. You jump a lot. You keep launching yourself into the air and jumping a lot. Actually, don't do that, though. Just a bit of advice. The ground combos are the damage. Jumping around is cool. Use it to dodge stuff or move around, but they're like the worst damage. I know they look cool, but if you see an Insect Glaive user jumping around constantly, they're being flashy and their DPS sucks. The ground moves are the ones that matter for DPS. The main point of this weapon is that it's very easy to jump up and mount monsters, so you can get the maximum number of mounts. They did buff the helicopter damage. They did. You're still best doing ground combos. I do think the hard part with this weapon, depending on the monster you're fighting, sometimes getting the Kinsect to hit the right spot on it to get the extract out so you can buff yourself and go into red mode can be really annoying. Sometimes you're like, oh, I need to just shoot the bug at its head and then have the bug bring the essence back to me and then I'll be buffed. So easy. And then it just keeps moving its head around. You're like, ah! It can be really annoying. But something that they changed that made it a lot easier is you can collect all the essences with your bug at once. Certain parts of the monster, when you hit the insect with it, it'll pick up an essence from it, and they're 3 colors. So the good news is none of it really matters that much unless you're starting the fight. You can just focus attack a wound and get all the buffs. Here's my meme. Here's me when I'm throwing out my insect and rise. Okay, and then the last 3 are the ranged weapons. Light bowgun. Incredibly mobile. I have it as my secondary right now. So many ammo types as I was looking through it. And this is for light and heavy bowgun, but they have the current energy system. You can just keep fighting forever. So when you successfully hit the monster with certain shots, your energy refills and then you expend that energy. It just is this self-fulfilling gauge that you can keep up all the time by playing properly. It doesn't have a guard like heavy bowgun does. That's not really that much of a problem, but you have to stay kind of close to the monster. It's very mid-range, so you have to use that good mobility to actually not get hit. You're not going to run away and kite and shoot and run away and kite and shoot. You're going to be near it and just moving side to side a lot shooting. Does the ammo run out? Yeah, so that's why I put this meme here. You're going to be buying a bunch of ammo, probably. Depending, that could cost a lot. Heavy bowgun. You also have the energy system going on here where landing shots successfully. Long range, and when I mean long range, I mean like really long range. Compared to before, it feels like the range is still kind of similar, but the monsters don't run back and forth as much as they did in Rise, so I feel like the range feels very useful here. It can guard, and something they added was an auto guard. So basically, if something tries to hit you and you could guard it, your character auto blocks it. You can just manual guard, but having the auto guard on is genuinely life-saving. I just wrote useful. Genuinely, it is just useful. It's nice to have in a party. There are a lot of things you can do. You can, oh, I want to cut the tail. Okay, I'll use the right ammo type and shoot the tail, and I can snipe it no matter where it is, no matter what it's doing. Oh, it's up in the sky? Okay, I'll just aim up and shoot it down. It's just useful to have in a party when you're fighting multiplayer, in my opinion. I think it's useful in general. Oh. This didn't save. Okay, well, my cons were going to be slow movement, slow turning, and then the close range, not good. Here's the related meme. The damage has always been quite high on it. Very good DPS, especially in World. Everyone was building out an armor set just for like sticky ammo 3, heavy bowgun, 2.5 minute final boss speed run. It was insane how many people made this like the meta, and they weren't wrong for it. It was so funny that they were killing monsters instantly. There's a new ignition mode that's really cool. Yeah, a lot of the weapons you pull them out and you can like Gatling fire and everything. And my favorite, the crit distance is up. You can crit from afar. I think it's really, really cool. I need to learn it properly. They did remove Wyvern Snipe. I did like the snipe. I just don't think it really added much to the combat, but I enjoyed it. And then bow. Again, it's sort of close mid-range that you're going to use it a lot. So it's a ranged weapon, but it's not that ranged. But again, it's mobile, so you're just kind of kiting and running around them and shooting them. They added tracers, that's new, right? You shoot a tracer at the monster and it attaches to wherever it lands. And then when you shoot normal arrows, now they kind of home to it, which is pretty cool. The moves are really flashy, it just looks cool. So if you want to play a ranged weapon, but you want to just feel like really good while playing it, I think light and heavy bowgun I still enjoy playing, but they're not flashy. They're flashy in effects, but they're not flashy in the character movement. Some people like need that to enjoy the game, honestly. Bow is for you. It is very stamina hungry, right? Pulling back and charging a shot holds and uses your stamina gauge. Yeah, that can be a little annoying, but if you're with a hunting horn who's doing melodies to give you stamina regen up, you're chilling. The stamina hungry thing isn't so bad though, right? Because they added perfect dodges. Here's the related meme for when you're doing your big hits. Anyway, it's a lot of weapons. There's 14 of them. Whoa. But if you're a beginner, I would recommend just trying out, honestly, sword and shield, dual blades, hammer. Don't go for switch axe, charge blade as your first weapons. There you go. That's your quick and dirty run through. You love the simple design and detail of your arrows being the size of spears. Yeah. Do you sleep? No. After seeing so many bad presentations at work, this was nice to see. I didn't go crazy with the visuals because I figured we'd just be talking over it. And you're going to watch me play things. You're going to watch other people play things. So you'll have the visual guide in front of you. It's hard to mess up a presentation. When someone would do a really bad presentation, I would be like, brother, just write bullet points that are correct and then read them out and describe them. Over time, I realized it actually is hard for people. how does it feel to play on keyboard and mouse? I actually think it's pretty good. I think keyboard and mouse feels a lot better than World. Can you swap weapons later on? You can always swap weapons in between every single hunt. You could build all of them and use all of them at once. What was the fruitiest weapon? Probably a set glaive. Do you need to pick a secondary weapon? You have to have one, but you don't have to use it all. I haven't been using mine much, to be honest. Which weapon has a high swag meter? Well, everyone calls switch axe swag axe, so it has to be switch axe. For a beginner, would you lean more towards lance or gun lance as the first choice? Honestly, both are really viable. I think lance is a little easier. I would say start lance and then try gun lance after. For solo, do you recommend having both melee and ranged weapons, or does it really not matter? I think having a good ranged weapon is good because you can shoot certain monsters out of the air. I feel like there's a lot of use there. Aerial combat for glaive was buffed post-beta, so it's more viable to stay in the air now. Yeah, I'm curious to see what the actual damage numbers are. I mean, it might be that your ground combos and your aerial combos are really similar now. I don't know. Might depend on the monster too and what parts you're hitting. What's the best weapon and why is it greatsword? See, that fits the meme that I put on the greatsword. I am the greatest weapon. You should just do like naked greatsword runs, honestly, for fun.